The Founder of Demonic Cultivation. An English translation by Fan E.E. 33. Read by Luna Minerva. Chapter 12. Elegance, Part 3. Wei Wuxian thought for a bit afterwards and remembered his relationship with Lan Wangji had been quite bad. The root of the problem could probably be traced to when he was 15, which was the time when he and Jiang Chang had both gone to live and study with the Gusu Lan sect for 3 months. The Gusu Lan sect had a great and famous old veteran named Lan Qiren, who the cultivation world widely considered to possess 3 special characteristics: traditionalism, inflexibility, and the ability to produce brilliant students through his strict instruction. Though the first 2 points led most to keep him at a respectful distance, and some to secretly dislike him, the last caused many to use every method at their wits' disposal to send their children to him to receive his teachings. The Lan clan had produced many outstanding disciples under his hand, and even children who had started as useless pieces of dog excrement were able to at least look respectable once they had studied in his classroom for 1 or 2 years. Exhibiting an incomparable improvement in bearing and etiquette, the children often moved their parents to tears when they were finally reunited. To this Wei Wuxian declared, "Aren't I already respectable enough now?" Jiang Chang's reply exhibited a great deal of foresight. "You're almost certainly going to become the one shameful failure of his teaching career." At the time, other than the Yunmeng Jiang sect, there were also many other sons of other clans whose parents had all sought out Lan Qiren and begged him to allow their children to attend. None of these young masters were older than about 15 or 16, and all had frequent dealings with each other's clans, so though they weren't close, their faces were at least mutually familiar. Everyone knew that though Wei Wuxian's surname wasn't Jiang, he was the top disciple of the Yunmeng Jiang sect and the son of an old friend of the chief, Jiang Fengmian, who viewed the boy as though he was his own child. Moreover, the youths didn't care nearly as much about background and ancestry as the older generation, so they warmed up to each other very quickly. Within the space of a few sentences, they began calling each other brother and speaking without regard to etiquette. Someone asked, "Clan Jiang's lotus pier has to be a lot more fun than this, right?" Laughing, Wei Wuxian said, "Whether it's fun or not depends on you. There are definitely a lot fewer rules, and there's no need to wake up so early." The Gusu Lan sect not only woke up at 5 a.m. and slept at 9 p.m., but they also permitted no sluggishness. Another said, "When do you guys wake up? What do you do every day?" Jiang Chang snorted. "Him? He wakes up at 9 and goes to sleep at 1. And once he wakes up, he doesn't practice swordsmanship or meditate. He goes to play in the water or go boating or pick lotus seeds or hunt pheasants." "No matter how many pheasants I hunt, I'm still number 1, Wei Wuxian said. One of the youths said, "Next year I want to study at Yunmeng. No one better try and stop me." Promptly, a bowl of cold water was thrown over him. "No one's gonna stop you, only your older brother will break your legs." That youth immediately withered. He was the Jinhe Nie clan's second young master, Nie Huaisang. His older brother, Nie Mingjue, had always been famed for his fighting prowess, and conducted his affairs with the force of lightning and the speed of wind. Though the 2 brothers were not born of the same mother, the bonds of sentiment between them ran deep and true. Nie Mingjue guided his younger brother very strictly and was extremely attentive to his education. But though Nie Huaisang revered his older brother, he was terrified of the prospect of Nie Mingjue bringing up his schoolwork. Wei Wuxian said, "Actually, Gusu is pretty fun too." "Brother Wei, listen to my heartfelt advice," Nie Huaisang said. "The cloud recesses is nothing like Lotus Pier. During your visit here, you have to remember never to provoke a certain someone." "Who? Lan Qiren?" Wei Wuxian said. "No, not that old man. The one you have to be careful around is his favorite student, Lan Zhan." Wei Wuxian said, "Lan Zhan of the Lan clan's twin jades? Lan Wangji?" The Guosulan clan chief's two sons, Lan Huan and Lan Zhan, enjoyed the pretty moniker the Guosulan clan's twin jades, and by the age of 14 had set the standard against which the seniors of all clans compared their own disciples. Among the juniors, they were especially famous, so the names echoed through everyone's ears like thunder. Nie Huaisang said, "Is there another Lan Zhan? Of course it's him. My gods, he's the same age as us, but he doesn't have a bit of the lively energy people are supposed to have at our age. He's so stiff and severe, he's even worse than his uncle." "Oh," Wei Wuxian said. "Is he the pretty one?" Jiang Chang scoffed. "Is there a single ugly person in the Guosulan sect? They don't even accept outer disciples whose features aren't good-looking enough. Go, find me a single one with a mediocre face." "He's really pretty," Wei Wuxian emphasized before gesturing towards his head. "He dresses only in white, has a ribbon around his forehead, and carries a silver sword. Even though he's good-looking, his stiff face makes him look like he's in mourning." "Yes, him!" Nie Huaisang said with certainty. He paused a moment. "But he's in secluded meditation today. If you got here yesterday, when could you have seen him?" "Yesterday night." Yesterday night?" Jiang Chang was stunned. "But there's a curfew in the cloud recesses. Where did you see him? How come I didn't know about this?" Wei Wuxian pointed. "There." He was pointing at the roof of a high wall. Everyone met this revelation in silence. Anxiety was making Jiang Chang's temples and jaw tense. He gritted his teeth. "You just got here, and you're already getting into trouble. What's wrong with you?" Laughing playfully, Wei Wuxian replied, "Come on, it's not as bad as you're thinking. When we were on the road here, we passed that Emperor's Smile liquor store, right? Yesterday night, I tossed and turned until I couldn't stand it any longer. Then I went down to the city and brought a couple of jars back. You can't find this stuff in Yunmeng." "Then where's the liquor?" Jiang Chang said. "Well, right as I made it over the wall, before my foot even touched the ground, he got me." One of the youths said, "Brother, you really won the lottery. He had probably just left seclusion for his night patrol duties, and he just happened to catch you red-handed." "Anyone coming back at night isn't allowed in until 5 a.m. the next morning," Jiang Chang said. "Why'd he let you in?" Wei Wuxian raised his hands. "He didn't let me in. Told me I had to remove the leg that had crossed the boundary. You tell me, how exactly?" "So he suddenly floated over to me and asked me what was in my hands." Jiang Chang sensed an incipient headache, and an ominous feeling came over him. "And you said?" "Emperor's Smile. I'll give you a jar and you pretend you didn't see anything, okay?" Jiang Chang sighed. "Ugh, alcohol is forbidden inside the cloud recesses. That's even worse." "He told me the same thing," Wei Wuxian said. "I asked him, why don't you just tell me what your sect doesn't prohibit?" He looked a bit angry and wanted me to go read the discipline wall at the front of the mountain. Honestly, who's going to read 3,000 plus rules? And they're written in seal script, too. Have you read them? Have you read them? Anyway, I didn't read them. But what's there to be mad about? Exactly! Everyone sympathized with him, and one by one they began making all sorts of complaints about the cloud recess's outrageous, old-fashioned ways. The boys regretted they hadn't met and spoken sooner. "What clan has over 3,000 unique clan rules? No killing living things inside, no private fights, no promiscuity, no wandering around at night, no rackets, no rushing about. These kinds of things are understandable, but rules like no laughing for no reason, no sitting improperly, no more than 3 bowls of rice?" Wei Wuxian asked hastily, "Wait, private fights are forbidden too?" "Yes, don't tell me you fought him," Jiang Chang said. "Yeah, I did. He even knocked over one of my jars of Emperor's Smile." All who were gathered slapped their thighs in regret and cried loudly about how tragic the loss was. Since the situation could hardly be worse, Jiang Chang changed the focus of his questions. "Didn't you bring back 2 jars? Where's the other?" I drank it. Where did you drink it? Jiang Cheng said. In front of him. I said, all right, since liquor is prohibited inside the cloud recesses, I won't come in. I'll stand right on this wall and drink it. That doesn't count as breaking the rules, right? So I downed the whole thing right in his face. And then? That was when we fought. Brother, Nie Huaisang blurted out in astonishment. You're truly brazen. Wei Wuxian raised his eyebrows. Lan Zhan's got some skills. You're going to die, Brother Wei. Lan Zhan's never gotten the worst of it like that. He's probably going to come after you. You'd better be careful. Sure, Lan Zhan isn't attending the lectures with us, but he's the member of Lan Clan who's in charge of punishments. Wei Wuxian wasn't the slightest bit scared. He waved his hand dismissively. What's there to be afraid of? Hasn't Lan Zhan been known to be a child prodigy since he was little? If he was so precocious, then he must have learned all of his uncle's teachings a long time ago. If he's in seclusion all day, how can he come after me? Before he was finished, the group rounded a wall with an open-style window and saw that the elegant room inside held a youth dressed in white, sitting upright and still. His long hair was tied up, a ribbon was wrapped around his forehead, and his whole body seemed shrouded in frosty mist. His chilly gaze swept over them. Immediately the 10 or so mouths slammed shut, as though struck by a silent spell all at once. Silently the youths shuffled into the room, and silently they chose their seats and sat down. Silently they left all of the writing desks around Lan Wangji empty. Jiang Cheng patted Wei Wuxian on the shoulder and quietly said, His gaze is pinned on you. Good luck. Wei Wuxian turned his head and caught sight of Lan Wangji's side. His eyelashes were fine and long, graceful and beautiful beyond words. His posture was also incomparably straight and proper, and his gaze was directed perfectly forward. Just as Wei Wuxian intended to speak to him, Lan Qiren walked into the room. Lan Qiren was tall and thin, with a ramrod-straight back. Though he possessed a long beard resembling a black mountain goat's, he was not at all old. Moreover, according to the Guosu Lan clan's tradition of producing beautiful men each generation, he also wasn't at all ugly. It was a pity he had a rigid and pedantic aura about him, which made referring to him as an old man feel entirely appropriate. When he opened the scroll he had entered with, it tumbled to the floor and unrolled itself all over the ground. He then began lecturing on the rules of the Lan clan. As the boys sat and listened, their faces started to turn green. Wei Wuxian grew bored, and his eyes began to dart randomly around the room until they landed on Lan Wangji's profile, and upon seeing that the boy's expression was one of completely sincere, solemn concentration, he couldn't help but be stupefied. He can still pay such close attention, even when the material is this dull. Suddenly, Lan Qiren threw down his scroll and smiled coldly. No one reads what is carved into the rock wall. This is why I must read out the rules one by one. From now on, we shall see who still tries to make excuses from ignorance. Even under these circumstances, there are people whose minds wander. Very well, then I will speak on another topic. Though these words of warning could have been directed at nearly anyone in the room, Wei Wuxian suspected they were aimed specifically at him. Indeed, Lan Qiren called, Wei Ying. Present, Wei Wuxian answered. Let me ask you, are fae, demons, ghosts, and monsters all the same kind of being? Wei Wuxian smiled. No. Why not? What are the differences between them? Fae come from living non-humans, demons from living humans, ghosts from dead humans, and monsters from dead non-humans. Fae and monsters are often confused. Give an example of the difference. Sure. Wei Wuxian pointed at an elegant jade-green tree outside. Let's take a living tree and suppose it's basked in an aura of literary fame for 100 years, and becomes a conscious being through cultivation. If it then begins to cause humans trouble, it would be classified as a fae. On the other hand, if I took an axe and cut it down, leaving only a dead tree stump, and it cultivated a consciousness, it would be considered a monster. What was the profession of the founder of the Jinghe sect? Butcher. The emblem of the Lanling-Jin sect is a white peony. What kind of white peony? Venus above the billowing snows. Who was the first person to prioritize the strengthening his clan at the expense of his sect? The founder of the Jishan Wen sect, Wen Mao. He answered these questions fluently, and the others' hearts rose and fell with his words as though riding atop turbulent waves. They thanked their lucky stars while simultaneously praying for Wei Wuxian not to stumble, so that Lan Qiren never got a chance to pick on anyone else. But the old man said, "As a disciple of the Yunmong Jiang clan, you should already be so familiar with this information, you could have recited it backwards years ago. Answering these questions correctly is nothing to be proud of. Let me ask you another. An executioner with a mother, father, wife, son, and all the usual complement of loved ones has beheaded over 100 people. He is then murdered in the streets, and his body is left to rot in the sun for 7 days. Full of resentment, his corpse rises and begins to haunt the town, violently attacking the citizens. What should be done?" This time Wei Wuxian didn't answer immediately, so the others assumed he didn't know and began shifting nervously in their seats. Lan Qiren berated them. "Why are you looking at him? You need to contemplate this question as well. No flipping through your books." Everyone immediately pulled their hands away from said books, which they had already been preparing to open. Following Wei Wuxian, they fumbled through the question. Murdered in the streets, body left to rot for 7 days, a very fierce corpse. It was indeed a very difficult situation. They would only be safe as long as old man Lan didn't pick on them. Seeing that Wei Wuxian had yet to answer, though a long time had already passed, Lan Qiren looked pensive and said, "Wang Ji, you explain to them what should be done."